What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to some more Bible reading stuff. So, confession time. I am recording this just after the previous one. I'm going to have to do a little bit of that if I want to keep getting more of these out there. But anyway, the point of me doing this was just to read through the entire Bible, not necessarily within a certain time frame. So, you know, whether I do it weekly or more than once a week, that's all a matter of just how often I want to get these out there. So anyway, we're hitting up Genesis 17 this time. A bit longer of a chapter than 16 was. So, basically last time, Abram had a son through one of his wife's servants, and that caused some problems. We'll see what happens from there. I mean, it seemed like it kind of somewhat got resolved, but there will be more, I think, on the broader situation, at least for Abram, in the upcoming chapters. So, chapter 17, verse 1. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you by which I will guarantee to give you countless descendants. Okay, so there's another kind of name for God, El Shaddai. And God, once again, trying to reassure, I guess, or at least remind Abram that if he does right, then he will get what was promised to him and have many descendants. Verse 3. At this, Abram fell face down on the ground. Then God said to him, This is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. So, again, many descendants being promised. And, now, I guess I should probably take a look at the notes regarding Abraham. So, it says Abram means exalted father. Abraham sounds like a Hebrew term that means father of many. So, whereas his name before was just, like saying that he would be a father and that he would be honored, Abraham is more so like kind of hammering down the point that, okay, he's not just going to be a father of like a few, he's going to be a father of many. So, verse 7. This is still God speaking. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you, from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God. So, reminder that, the covenant promise that God is making with Abraham is not just that he will have many descendants, but that they will also live in this particular land. As long as they worship him. I mean, it doesn't word it quite like that. It just says that, he will be their God. But there's maybe an implication in there that, as long as they follow their God and stay loyal to God, that they will prosper and that they will be able to live in the land that's been promised. So, anyway, verse 9. Then God said to Abraham, "Your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you." So now we're getting a little more details and specifics on what Abraham and his descendants need to do, what God is asking of them as part of this covenant. Verse 12. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. So, pretty hard line being taken there, and it's kind of similar in a way, I guess, to the hard line that God took, regarding the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. And it's not, on the whole, in really both of these situations, it's not a lot that God requires for these promises to be upheld. But, as is the case sometimes, not everybody follows these, which is why there's even a need to mention what happens if the covenant is broken or if it's not followed. So, this the mark, so to speak, of circumcision is something that is still to this day a staple among the Jewish people. And I think many Christians even follow along with this and continue in that act because they're, it could just be tradition. B, could be, having to do with this and the fact that this was required of the promise. And if we are to be part of that promise of God's, that we need to act accordingly as well. This does eventually at one point in the New Testament become a point of contention. However, that's a long ways from now. I will probably bring it back up once we get there. But anyway, Abraham is not the only one who is, getting increased promises and benefits here. Verse 15. Then God said to Abraham, "Regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. From now on, her name will be Sarah. And I will bless her and give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly, and she will become the mother of many nations. Kings of nations will be among her descendants." Okay, so, trying to look at the name change here and its meaning in the footnotes. Sarai and Sarah both mean princess. The change in spelling may reflect the difference in dialect between Ur and Canaan. Okay. So less significant of a name change for Sarah, but I think it's also just kind of in line with, the renewed covenant and now the assurance from God that, yes, Abram, or now Abraham, your wife, who is also going to be given a new name. Your wife is going to give you a son. And she will be part of this covenant promise. She is going to be the mother of these many nations that I have already promised to you. So as she is part of this promise, it is only fitting that she also gets a name change. Just to signify that. So this also goes a little bit against the possible previous thought that was, that might have been believed with, Abram and Hagar regarding Ishmael possibly being, the promised son that would give him many descendants. I mean, Ishmael also gets many descendants, but they're not part of God's long-term covenant with Abraham. Anyway, verse 17. Then Abraham bowed down to the ground, but he laughed to himself in disbelief. How could I become father at the age of 100, he thought. And how can Sarah have a baby when she is 90 years old? So Abraham said to God, May Ishmael live under your special blessing. So even there, Abraham is still thinking, you've got to be joking. Like, am I really going to still have more children? No, that can't be. That's ridiculous. Maybe God is saying that, Sarah will be the mother of many nations just because, because Hagar was her servant. And so, Sarah then gets, attributed to these, as the mother of these descendants. She gets the honor for it. Anyway, verse 19. But God replied, No, Sarah, your wife, will give birth to a son for you. You will name him Isaac, and I will confirm my covenant with him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. So Isaac translates approximately to, he laughs. Probably God being like, all right, well, you think this is funny? This is really going to make you laugh when this actually happens. So, because of that, your son is essentially going to be named Laughter. Verse 20. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will make him extremely fruitful and multiply his descendants. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. When God had finished speaking, he left Abraham. So, in line with Abraham's request, God does say that Ishmael will be blessed too, and that he will, as mentioned to Hagar, be the father of many nations, or have many descendants at least. But the primary covenant, regarding Canaan specifically, is that is connected with Isaac, the son that Abraham is yet to have through Sarah, not Ishmael. So, then we get to verse 23. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those he had bought. Then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskins, just as God had told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and Ishmael his son was 13. Both Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised on the same day, along with all the other men and boys of the household, whether they were born there or bought as servants. All were circumcised with him. So that's pretty much just Abraham acting on, his part of the covenant that God made with him. And I believe this does actually come into play a little bit at one point in a later chapter, unless I'm getting my stories mixed up in my head. But in any case, yeah, like I said, that was pretty much just Abraham following through with what God had told him to do. And like even down to the level of, the servants and those who were not even just, it says those he had bought as well. So I guess those would have been people that he had gotten while living in other places. So, Abraham currently has a fairly large household, but, he, in order to keep in line with God's covenant and the promises thereof, he wants to make sure he's holding up his end of the deal. And there you go. All the males in the house are circumcised then. It says it even happened all on the same day. So he not only acted on that, he acted quickly. Which, that level of, loyalty, I suppose, was part of the reason that he was even given this blessing and honor and covenant in the first place. So anyway, that wraps it up for chapter 17. My nose is also getting really itchy. So anyway, as always, like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with others if you want them to see. Look down in the description for info on other social media pages. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell, though, if you want to get notifications and updates when I post new stuff to YouTube. That's the most reliable way, in any case. Some other social media pages, I'll put stuff there, namely Facebook and Twitter. But anyway, yeah. That's all you got to do in terms of, following and interacting with things, other than leaving comments down below with any thoughts that you have regarding, this chapter, other video ideas, connections from elsewhere in the Bible, whatever it is, let me know down below, or the others who happen to watch this video. So anyway, that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I will see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.